So the article I chose to read was written by Richard K. Olson, and it was called "Why Do Children Differ in Their Development of Reading and Related Skills?" This article was about whether lack of reading development is due to environmental factors or if it is due to genetics. Many people have a misconception that reading is a learnt skill, and so it should be very reliant on environmental factors, especially considering if a child is left behind, the teacher is usually the first person who feels the blame. The study was conducted in many different countries such as the US, Australia, Scandinavia, and the UK. It consisted of fraternal, who only have 50% of shared genetics, fraternal twins, and identical twins, who have 100% of shared genetics. The thing about twins is that they will have almost exactly the same environments. They will have the same books at home, the same family support, the same shared teachers, the same peers, and the same classrooms. But they can also have different environments, like different peers, different teachers, different classrooms, different illnesses, different birth problems. So in the study, some of the twins have almost exactly the same environmental factors as well as the same genetics. Some had different genetics and the same environment, and others had the same genetics and different environments. By the end of the study, it concluded that the environment has actually very little to do with reading development, contrary to common belief, and in fact has a lot to do with genetics. Overall, the article did outline that it shouldn't be mainly the teacher who is to blame when a child doesn't succeed. It was actually quite interesting to read about it because even I thought it very much had to do with a child's environment, but that's not necessarily the case. I think through reading this article, it just further proves the point that all children will be at different levels no matter what their circumstance is, which is fascinating.
Literacy practices are situationally defined in and through the interactions and practices of students and teachers at school, and family and community members at home. Family influences play a key aspect into not only the overall literacy development, but into reading development also. Throughout children's situations and engagement with others from a young age, it can begin to shape what they see as correct and incorrect in a literary setting. For example, if an individual is reading to or spoken to in a certain manner, they can be conditioned and shaped in such a way that their reading skills and development is impacted. This also plays a factor when it comes to critically analysing socio-cultural differences within schools and settings. Socio-cultural factors include region of school, religion, home culture, and overall attitudes towards everyday aspects. Specifically, within schools and learning environments, reading can be one of the hardest parts of learning with those who are disadvantaged. Coe in 1995 pointed out that the way school achievement through literacy varies highly as context and purposes of literacy change between individual and individual. As this report identifies, a mismatch between school and home surrounding the learning and study of literacy is extremely difficult to overcome if no meaningful action is taken to overcome an obstacle or restraint. This is where support groups such as Reading Recovery can assist with a student or individual that is having difficulty developing their own reading skills, as well as positive influences acting on and helping further develop their child to learn how to develop their reading skills. As classrooms are not simple places, each classroom within each school must attempt to cater for all individual learning needs and goals. The report itself is a case study that has identified what has and hasn't worked in schools across their literacy programs in an attempt to go beyond the content being taught to get to the root of what is causing an individual not to develop their reading and overall literacy skills at the rate of expectancy.
The article that I examined was Jenny Riley's piece of work titled "The Development of Literacy in the Early Years of School," Riley focused on the importance of developing young individuals' literacy skills as early as possible. She highlighted that on average, children can acquire at least 6,000 to 7,000 words into their vocabulary before they even begin school, which demonstrates how quickly children can learn new pieces of information. Throughout Riley's article, she also highlighted the notion that a major contribution to a positive start to school is a child's early success with the task of learning to read. Through Riley's research, she also discovered that low academic achievement was almost always linked to low reading abilities. This highlights how important it is to lay down the foundations of reading at an early age. Throughout the article, Riley makes suggestions on how to positively enhance a child's reading capabilities, such as the idea of sharing concepts of picture storybooks. This not only expands the child's reading skills, but also teaches them the important skill of comprehension. Riley also stated the importance of exposing children to meaningful experiences regarding print and text, which will assist them in staying engaged and influence them to feel excited and eager to read in the future. Riley also suggested that there are 3 vital factors that need to be taught in the early years of reading development. These included letter sound knowledge, the concept of a word, and comprehension. To keep track of a child's progress in these 3 areas, Riley stressed the importance of recording students' reading abilities at the beginning of the year to determine their strengths and weaknesses. These strengths and weaknesses will assist you as a teacher in creating achievable literacy goals for the students. Overall, Riley's article was built on the beliefs that Plato supported, and she used his quote, "Don't you know that in every task the most important thing is the beginning, and especially when you deal with anything young and tender?" I believe this quote of Plato's truly captured what Riley was exploring in her article and connects to the notion of how important it is to expand, strengthen, and support a child's reading abilities from an early age.
The article that I have chosen to talk about states that children will not be able to talk about books that have a more complex vocabulary than they do. This is why children need to not only be reading, but also engaging in conversations about books to further their vocabulary. These conversations can not only be about the story itself, but also other abstract aspects of the story. For example, the main character. What kind of person was the main character? How did the child come up with this conclusion? And judging by the characteristics of the main character, predicting the next part of the story. According to Prue Anderson, these are some great ways to get children engaged at an early years level to talk about books. Making predictions, relating the text to personal knowledge that is personal, local, and global, checking a sense of coherence of ideas, retelling, enacting or visualizing key ideas, adopting the vocabulary of the text to expand and elaborate ideas, and critically reflecting on the text. These are great to implement into a child's reading routine as they lay the foundation for true comprehension of the story rather than a simple retelling of events.